Good thing they don't charge by the word for my business cards. But I will note that I do pay for them myself. So anyway, Chris and Rachel, thank you so much for inviting me to join you here today. I'm thrilled, most of all, to be here with the young people who have given their time and their talent, and in probable good cause, foregone some treasure as well, in order to be with us this summer and contribute to the mission of making our country the place we want to be. There's a really great quote that I like to think about. So Theodore Roosevelt is kind of thought of as the founder of modern civil service. And he said, this country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. And you all have come here to help make a difference. Another great quote I like to reference is from Abraham Lincoln: the best way to predict the future is to create it ourselves. And again, that's something I applaud that Chris and Rachel have done. They didn't stay boxed in on what was possible before they got here. They saw an opportunity. They saw a place where they wanted to contribute. And they didn't say, here's the 25 reasons why I can't contribute. They said, how might I contribute? How might I make a difference? And that's the most important thing that I think your cohort in this program are demonstrating. You're doing what you can with what you have where you are. That's another Teddy Roosevelt quote, by the way. I love Teddy Roosevelt. That is so important, because at a time where people feel like the macro is out of reach and division and challenge may be facing us everywhere, taking action to make things better in whatever way and in whatever place we find ourselves is not just contributing to that one activity that you are doing. It's showing hope, not only to your fellows doing similar things, but it's showing people a different way of working. And we have 2.1 million civilian workers here in the federal government who toil day in and day out. And literally the word bureaucracy defines how most of those folks have been culturally trained to work. They have been trained to say, look at the statute, look at the rule, look at the reg. And we are a nation of laws and rules and regs, and we must think about those. But we still can ask questions about how might we lawfully, appropriately do things that are more focused on mission, focused on service, and focused on stewardship. And whether it's at HHS or NSF or at the lab at OPM, that's what you've been doing this summer. You've taken principles that may be natural to you around user-centered design and putting the customer first and thinking about self-service and seamless service delivery. And you've brought them into environments that don't think about service at all. Not because feds don't care about service. They absolutely do. But compliance is in our DNA in federal service, and we're so concerned about that. And what you're doing is helping us ask these new questions. How might we marry a new way of doing things with the compliance requirements we have? And if the compliance is getting in the way of doing the right thing, what then? That becomes a policy question. And if you elevate that question, that's something that folks like me can actually look at. And I'll do just my one little brief commercial announcement for the President's Management Agenda, which is really looking at root cause issues across all of the government that stand behind the challenges we've faced in making IT modernization, data accountability and transparency, and changing the culture of how we deal with people in the federal government. We've been looking at those root cause issues, And everything I learn, whether, Matt Cutts is telling me about a US DS project or some of the things that he's observed you running into from a process standpoint, from a rules standpoint, that's data I can use to tell stories in the halls of the executive office building to say, this isn't okay. The folks, who out here has ever heard of the Computer Matching Act? Okay. You might not know that's a problem, but other people, who you work with in the agencies know that all the cool things we could and should do with data have a trip over some of the challenges in a statute that's a fairly old statute that was not intended to do what it is in fact doing on this issue of helping us do data and analytics in a way that might prevent fraud or improper payments. Paperwork Reduction Act. Who knows what that is? Okay. It sounds pretty good, right? Reducing paper? Sounds awesome, right? What else does it mean? Like, you have to come knocking on OMB's door in order to do a survey. And I keep finding more use cases where even metadata that you would normally collect in normal course of business around web metrics could potentially, in the mind of some general counsel who is not comfortable with technology, make that general counsel really worried that you might run afoul of OMB on that issue. The more you see and name and help us elevate some of these challenges, the more we can talk about them from a policy standpoint. And I'll close with this. One of our biggest challenges in the current moment in time is our government was created largely by business people and lawyers. Computers didn't exist back in 1789 when our Constitution was created. And as a country with the rule of law, how lawyers execute things is with words on paper. And then, big giant pile of paper, it's going to be executed, right? Well, how service delivery happens in the 21st century is the combination of technology and people. And most of the people in this town don't really understand a whole lot about the intersections of the two. You all do. And so I am deeply grateful to all of you for being here with us. I am especially grateful for the leadership and innovation of Chris and Rachel and their supporters in the broader community at the agencies, at USDS, in the private sector, in academia, because what you are doing is part of a journey to actually transforming government to be what it needs to be in the 21st century, so that when you are standing up here at some point in the future, you're dealing with totally different problems. You're dealing with, deep connections with the people you serve and a responsive, democratic, technology-enabled world where you're able to be responsive and agile. So again, I thank you so much for all you've done for us this summer, and for those of you who've been here more summers in the past. Thank you, and again, thanks so much to you both, and I look forward to learning more about your projects.